and welcome back to my shelf. This is the 3rd of February already. I decided to give you my January wrap up. I read a total of 6 books this month. I'm just going to go through them all and see what I thought of them. So the first book that I read in the month of January was Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. I'm not sure who this is by, but on Goodreads it says it's by Elena Favilli and Francesca Cavallo, which are amazing names to start off with. I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5 on Goodreads. It was really fun and creative and really educated me about women, past women, present women, all women of every orientation, sexuality, religion, colour. It was just really a fun read and educational one. The pictures and the colour schemes and the illustrations were just so aesthetically pleasing in this book, and the pages are so freaking glossy. So for the first week of January I read a story out of this every night before I went to bed, because you know it's Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. Although the once upon a time aspect of it, which each story begins with, got a little bit repetitive, which is why I didn't give it a 5. I'm just going to need a sequel for this, and the sequel is coming out very soon and I'm going to pre-order it and I really can't wait for it. The second book that I read in January was Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Manasalco. So I say it in my words. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads because things. This book is a retelling or kind of like historical fiction, however you want to really view it, on Jack the Ripper. It's about our protagonist Audrey and her love for forensic science, and she basically wants to solve the murder of Jack the Ripper. She wants to find the killer. So I got told a lot on BookTube and from people I know IRL who have read this book, and they recommended it to me profusely because it was feminism and it was a girl wanting to do a STEM subject. And so when I picked up this book and I was really thrown into the feminist aspect, I was like, yes, finally, Audrey Rose is a brilliant protagonist. Brilliant, amazing. I stood into her shoes, and then a man solves the crime, and that means that this book just had no meaning before that point, because I was all like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do whatever I want and fuck my dad. I'm gonna go and okay, and never mind my dad, I'm not gonna listen to him, and I'm gonna go out and do whatever I want to do. And I was really behind that, and that turns out she didn't fucking solve the crime herself. It's just, she was bait in solving the crime, which really led this down to a 3.5. Although Kerri Manasalco didn't market this book as like a feminist novel, people turned it into that and then made my expectations too high. I loved studying Jack the Ripper when I was younger, when I was a kid and in school. I loved studying Jack the Ripper times in history. I just loved it so much. I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit metaphorical, like everyone's Jack the Ripper instant. You know what I mean? Like an Inspector Calls kind of thing. It's known to me that Jack the Ripper has never been found. No one knows who it is. And I don't think it was right for them to conclude this bit of history in one book. I don't think it was right. It feels like a little bit of rewriting history a little bit for me. I don't know, something was just a bit off about this. I was really fully on board until the ending, really. The ending kind of just went... Also, the romance in this was just... The next and third book that I read in January was A Brighter Fear by Kerry Drury. This got a 4.5 in my Goodreads and I loved this book. When I finished it, I was just... Tears were streaming, I was crying. I was on the way back from Devon to Nottingham, which is my hometown, and I was just bawling. So this book is about a girl called Lena and her family who are living in Baghdad. This is all about the immigrants' war from Americans and Baghdad, and not even just based on 2003. This I can kind of see being a book that was written about now, which really scares me. I just want to thank Drury, the author, for writing this book. Any ethnicity, it would have been really, really, really hard to write this book because it is such a powerful novel. It's just such a powerful story that if you got it wrong, it would have been a really big mistake and it would have been stamped on your career and your author's name for life. So it was a really big risk to write this book, but I'm so glad that she took it because it was amazing. Lena and her family are living in Baghdad. She's currently going to university, and then her family say that she can't go to university anymore because of the war with the Americans and the soldiers. She fights for her education, she fights for her family, she fights for herself. She makes so many decisions that I think that she made the right decision with. That might be completely different in your opinion. If you read it, please comment, see if she did make the right decision. If you voted out in Brexit or you hate immigrants, read this book. You will change your mind. Imagining this in real life and knowing that this happens now as I'm saying this, this book was just amazing. The next 2 books are from the same author. The first one being The Sun and Her Flowers by Rupi Kaur, and the second one being Milk and Honey, also by Rupi Kaur. I loved these books because I like poetry, and although not all of the poems were specifically relatable to me, it takes courage and determination as an author to be really vulnerable to your readers and to your audience. And Ruby Core is really vulnerable in these two, and you can just feel it. I do have some of my favourites marked down. If you would like me to read some, I'm going to do that anyway. I'm going to pick 3 from each of the books because I don't really have anything to say on them. They were really hard to rate, but I gave them both 4 stars because they were really good and enjoyable. We'll see why from the poetry readings that I'm going to do in a second. So this one is on page 122, and it is called Lessons from My Mama. When it came to listening, my mother taught me silence. If you are drowning their voice with yours, how will you hear them? She asked. When it came to speaking, she said, do it with commitment. Every word you say is your own responsibility. When it came to being, she said, be tender and tough at once. You need to be vulnerable to live fully, but rough enough to survive it all. When it came to choosing, she asked me to be thankful for the choices I had. She never had the privilege of making. The next one I'm going to read is on page 148, and it is simply 2 stanzas. It says, my mother sacrificed her dreams so I could dream. And it has a picture of her mother, I assume. The next one I'm going to be reading is on page 186, and it's called Commitment. When death takes my hand, I will hold you with the other and promise to find you in every lifetime. And the last one from this book I'm going to read is on page 213, and it's called Legacy. I stand on the sacrifices of 1,000,000 women before me, thinking, what can I do to make this mountain taller so the women after me can see further? I lied. I'm going to read another one because this one is just too good not to say. This one's on page 237. When my daughter is living in my belly, I will speak to her like she's already changed the world. She will walk out of me on a red carpet fully equipped with the knowledge that she's capable of anything she sets her mind to. Next is Milk and Honey. I'm going to be reading a few from here as well. This one kind of sat with me a little bit more because it's more deep. The first one is on page 30 that really kind of hit me, and here we go. You tell me to quiet down because my opinions make me less beautiful, but I was not made with a fire in my belly so I could be put out. I was not made with a lightness on my tongue so I could be easy to swallow. I was made heavy, half blade and half silk, difficult to forget and not easy for the mind to follow. The next one I'll be reading is on page 37. It's quite long, but bear with me. Father, you always call to say nothing in particular. You ask what I'm doing or where I am, and when the silence stretches like a lifetime between us, I scramble to find questions to keep the conversation going. What I long to say most is I understand this world broke you. It has been so hard on your feet. I don't blame you for not knowing how to remain soft with me. Sometimes I stay up thinking of all the places you are hurting which you'll never care to mention. I come from the same aching blood, from the same bones so desperate for attention I collapse in on myself. I am your daughter. I know the small talk is the only way you know how to tell me you love me because it is the only way I know how to tell you. This one's also pretty long on page 97, but I thought it was worth it because I don't really have a lot to say, so just bear with me. Did you think I was a city? Big enough for a weekend getaway? I am the town surrounding it, the one you've never heard of but always pass through. There are no neon lights here, no skyscrapers or statues, but there is thunder. For I make bridges tremble. I am not street meat. I am homemade jam thick enough to cut the sweetest thing your lips will touch. I am not police sirens. I am the crackle of a fireplace. I'd burn you and you still couldn't take your eyes off of me. Because I'd look so beautiful doing it, you'd blush. I am not a hotel room, I am home. I am not the whiskey you want, I am the water that you need. Don't come here with expectations and try to make a vacation out of me. This one's on page 117, and this is the last one I'm going to read. My issue with what they consider beautiful is their concept of beauty, centred around excluding people. I find hair beautiful when a woman wears it like a garment that is the definition of beauty. Big hooked noses pointing towards the sky like they're rising to the occasion. Skin the colour of earth, my ancestors planted crops on to feed a lineage of women with thick thighs as tree trunks. Eyes like almonds, deeply hooded with conviction. The rivers of Punjab flow through my bloodstream, so don't tell me my women aren't as beautiful as the ones in your country. The last book I read in January was Undercover Princess by Connie Glynn, aka Nuderella. I gave this a 3 or 3.5, I haven't really decided yet, out of 5 on my Goodreads. This book had something that made it really quick to get through, and I read this very quickly. The cover is also beautiful. It also has some very important messages about self-care and caring about other women and women empowerment. Connie didn't stray away from letting the male characters stand aside from the female ones in this instance to make their own decisions and choices. They kind of just helped them on their way when they screwed up, and I think that was really, really nice. I know that it wasn't supposed to blow my mind, because I'm not in the target audience, and if you were expecting this magical, you know, thing that was designed for you, you have your expectations a little bit too high, because walking into this, I knew it was middle grade. Going into this, I knew that it was going to be middle grade. I knew that it was going to be cliche. I knew that it was going to be lovable like that. It was going to be cheesy, and I think that's what made it the book and what made me like it that little bit more. These are all of the books that I read in January. I hope that you really enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a massive thumbs up and comment down below if you want to read or have read any of these books. I'd say my favourite was probably A Brighter Fear by Kerry Drury, or Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. I'd say my least favourite was probably Stalking Jack the Ripper, which I didn't think was going to be the case, but it was. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week for my bookshelf tour. Bye!
I wanna watch them fly and fly and see them soar up into the unknown. But I feel just like a nerd watching birds watching me here.